ringing their little potty bell and stuff too.
Oh, yeah, of course. That sounds about right.
Okay, just hit live. We'll wait for some people to jump on. Andy, Casey, Andy.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to
Both
meet
my
you.
peeps. Okay, I guess we can. We'll get started because people always. Oh yeah, here we go. People are jumping on. And Andy, okay, so I know you're in the Portland area. What specific town are you in again? I should remember from Christmas cards, but
you know what? I live in a suburb of Portland, so I live in a little town called Gladstone. And it's funny because even people who live here just miss it because it's in between two other small suburbs. So it's a little spot called Gladstone, and we're just southeast of Portland.
Love it. And I found Andy. I was just like posting in all these EXP groups and like, I don't know, just real estate groups. I'm like looking for a business coach. I'm so overwhelmed, like freaking out.
Yes, it happens.
I call Andy like my business therapist too.
Yes, I like it.
Yes, there you go.
Cool. Well, I'll do some introductions since we have some people popping on. I'm Hallie McCrory. I am in San Angelo, Texas, realtor and team lead for Hallie's Homes, known for doing 90 deals in a small town. And actually, Andy came up with that. And then we've got Casey Stiers, my co-host, the downtown guru of Raleigh, North Carolina, but she services all of North Carolina. Residential, commercial, any sort of investment you want to do. Casey owns like all these different like little bars on the main street in Raleigh, which is super cool with her fiance.
We have 3 new ones opening too.
Oh, sorry. What did you say?
We have 3 new ones opening as well. So
3? Awesome. I didn't know it was 3. Wow.
Yeah, we got 3 new ones opening. So.
And that's Mr. Rocky, the realtor, too.
Yeah, he's very needy today. So I've been going all day, so he's going to be a very big presence tonight.
That's okay. And then we've got Miss Andi Blackwell on, my business coach and business therapist, as I joke. And she has just been an amazing asset for me. Awesome top producing realtor in the Portland area. You also work Washington too, no? Or your team?
Yeah, so I'm licensed in Oregon and Washington. So we work the Portland metro area from Mount Hood to the North Coast and Southwest Washington as well. There's just so much back and forth. You know, when you're on the edge of a state, it really makes sense to get that second license.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like, I don't know. I've never been to Portland. I've never been to Oregon or Washington, but I feel like I now know all these like different realtors and people there. And I feel like I need to go and like truly understand what you guys are talking about.
We got to get you out here for the summer. Do a retreat.
No, I've never been there.
Retreat. Yes, I know. We need to. Yeah. Well, maybe we can talk about that today. But I wanted to have Andi on. She has been like I said, such a big asset for me in my business. And with the start of the new year, for those people, realtors, anybody in real estate who haven't done their business planning or maybe wanting to get, a jump on it, didn't do it before the year started, it's still really early on in January. So I thought Andi could give some good hacks, tips, and tricks on getting everything planned and organized in your business. Is there anything that you wanted to add to any of that, Andi?
No, I'm a big fan of planning, right? But also I think that a lot of times what happens to us is we get in our own way on things. And so then we don't put in the plan or we don't work the plan. And so there's a lot that goes around it. Mm-hmm. And if we're not careful, we can just kind of get into that paralysis mode and we don't move forward. And it's really not as involved as a lot of people think it is.
For sure. So I want you to tell the audience, explain your style of like, what is business coaching? What does that look like? And then maybe dive into what your style is and how that like differs from other, coaches.
So one of the things that I think probably differentiates me than most is, for me, I'm not necessarily about following the model, because the model works great unless the model isn't working for you. And so, for example, one of my favorite business planning advice to give is kind of real estate heresy. And it's don't waste your time planning things that you're not going to do. Yeah. Because there are some times who are like, you know what, I've been told that I need to do this, so I need to put this into my plan. And they waste a lot of mental and emotional resources trying to get that square peg into the round hole sort of thing. Yeah. So and we think about it like we know the laws of physics, right? Objects in motion stay in motion, objects at rest stay at rest. So if you're forcing yourself into this position where you're not moving forward because you're trying to do something that you're really not going to get moving on, you're just going to find yourself falling further and further behind. So for me, the approach that I take with people is that most people get into real estate because they want freedom and they want to be in an industry that their income doesn't have a ceiling outside of the effort that they're willing to put into it.
Right.
But then they get into this shouldland and they're trying to do things that somebody else's way. And they find themselves in this, I got into it for the freedom and they're working too many hours. They're not taking any rest. So we really focus on why you got into it, taking care of yourself, and the idea that happiness doesn't follow success, success follows happiness. So if you're consistently doing the activities in your business that make you happy, your business is going to grow in a very healthy way.
Yeah. Is that why you named it the Happiness Studio too?
It is. And also because I wanted to show up every day in my own business with something that made me smile, right? Like if I, at one point somebody was like, well, you should name it Andi Blackwell Coaching and Consulting. And I was like, okay, it's my own name. And that even makes me miserable to think of showing up at. I'm going to get up today and go to work at Andi Blackwell Corporate Consulting. And everything started to feel gray. And the Happiness Studio, I'm excited to get up and go to work each day with what I do.
Yeah. I love that. So do you want to go into how you coach? Like for me, you started right off the bat with finances for me, or is that something you that you delve into once somebody signs up with you? I don't want to give away, your process or anything.
No, I'm happy to. I mean, my process isn't the process that I take people through. In some respects, it's not even necessarily something that they haven't done before, but it's walking through also with somebody who is sitting there asking you, well, why do you have to do it that way? Is that what works for you? So one of the things that we do is we start with essentially a visualization exercise of what do you want the end of your year to look at? And if you're sitting at the end of the year, and I want you to imagine yourself at a party and you're surrounded by all of your favorite people, and we ask who's there because we want to know who's most important in your life. And I also ask you who's not there, because sometimes when you're sitting there at that party and there are people who aren't there, you're realizing that there's something going on where these people and your path are not aligning. And then I ask you what you're celebrating. What is that you're excited? What's your accomplishment for that year? And then that's what we start focusing on as part of your business plan and your profit plan. And then, yes, you're right. We go right into the finances because a lot of people aren't comfortable with talking about money. And that's even gone to the extent where they're not even comfortable knowing about what's going on in their own money, right? They don't know what's going on in their own house. And then they start planning things that are based on just random concepts. Like I think oftentimes when we've been talking with new agents or people who want to get in the industry, I don't know about you guys, but oftentimes when I ask people about their goals, they're like, well, I want to make $100,000. And it's just because it sounds like a great big whole number, but they don't actually know if that number is going to meet what they need, what they want.
Right.
We talk about, I know that you and I have talked a lot about profit goals. What do you want your long-term goals to look like? Because that has to factor into your planning. There are a lot of people who say things like, well, I really want to buy an investment property, but they don't plan the down payment as part of their income goals each year to start hitting that goal. They fall into the concept of leftover money.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to joke that leftovers are for your refrigerator. It's not for your finances. That, there shouldn't be leftover money. Leftover money means you have something that you have not directed to your life, your business, or your goals, whether that's growing operations or just fun, right?
Right. I think it's hard too for realtors, just the way our industry and like being with the brokerage is set up. So obviously, or maybe not obviously, like when you become a realtor, I don't think people always think of it as, this is your own, like, this is your business. Like, yes, you're part of a brokerage or a team, whatever that looks like for you, but you still need to, you know, treat it as if it's your own business, and know all the finances in and out. And I'm definitely guilty of that.
Me
It's
too.
hard. It's totally different setup than if you were going to start your own business from scratch. So I think it's easy for realtors to lose sight of that.
It's hard to make that transition in most cases from the corporate mindset of, okay, I'm going into the office and they're going to help me produce. So then you have some people who are maybe just like sitting there waiting for leads and they don't understand why their business isn't working. The second thing that we see with that is sometimes some brokerages more than others will say are kind of a my way or the highway in their attitude of the activities that their people should be doing. And sometimes it's really good for new agents to have that, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. But then if it doesn't work, or if there's something that crosses a personal boundary for that agent, oftentimes instead they're met with shame of like, well, you just don't want to be successful enough because otherwise you'd push through and do this, instead of like the leadership rising up and going, oh, well, we're happy that you want to like work on this. So you can't do this, you can do this instead. So it's not optional in nature. And then the other thing is when we start off in real estate, we're doing everything, right? And I fell into this too. I was taking a seminar from somebody who'd just built major businesses. And I was talking to him and I'm like, I feel like I should have hired an assistant, but I haven't done it yet. And he looked at the numbers and he's like, you're being an idiot. Yes, hire the assistant. You're fine. And he made the comment. He's like, if you started any other business, you would not expect yourself to do every job. Like if you opened up a Subway tomorrow, you wouldn't expect yourself to be the sandwich maker, the cashier, managing everything in the back. But in real estate, we get into this thought process that we have to handle everything. Right. And we end up shorting ourselves because we're not doing what we're best at. And we're actually shorting our clients too, because then they're not necessarily getting the best person for the job as part of our team.
Yeah, absolutely. Also guilty of that.
Yes. I mean, who isn't, right?
Same.
Yeah. You're right. Who isn't? I can't think of anybody. Yeah. So true.
I mean, the nice thing is this is a business journey, right? Like we're going through this and we make decisions and we get more information. And the important thing is just the more information that we get, that we take it and we do better than we were doing before.
100%. So do you want to dive into some of your hacks that you have?
Oh, I would love to.
Okay, cool.
And I've talked a little bit about it so far already. I think one of my favorite ones is to not feel guilty about your business plan. And also not feel guilty about not having done a business plan. Technically, if you're planning for the year and you're planning from like a January to January time, the best time you can do your business plan is starting in October. And that's because real estate is usually on a 90-day sales cycle. So if you want to know what your consistent business is going to be in January, you have to start planning in October. But then we end up with a mindset sometimes where people say, well, it's already January 15th. I've already started the year and I haven't done my business plan. Kind of a why bother? I'll just fly through at the seat of my pants. And some of that is, I think that they feel that everybody else has done it, right? That they're just slacking and that everybody else has it together. But one of my favorite studies was a group of Harvard business alums that they all reached out to, and only 30% of them had a written business plan. And
Wow.
so another survey that Inc. did was, I think, let me actually pull up that information. It was something like 29%. Yeah, they studied Inc. 500 entrepreneurs, and 29% didn't have a plan. They just got started. So there's nothing wrong with just getting started and starting to work through your plan at the same time. It's always good to have a plan, but whether you do that plan today, tomorrow, or you wake up and do it in 3 months, it's back to that you have more information, so you're doing better thing, right?
Yeah.
When it comes to business planning, I talked a little bit about the idea of a profit plan and why I think that's so important. Another thing that you mentioned was about like getting right into the finances, right? And how a lot of people, we don't get into that.
Yeah.
And part of that, I think, is how many people are kind of scared of what their own finances are going to tell them, right? We get really emotionally tied to it, right? I remember at one point going through my budget back in the day and just crying because every like credit card payment was just me internalizing every financial bad decision that I'd made before, right?
Why do we do that? Ugh.
Well, and part of it is because money in so many ways is kind of like weaponized, right? Where it's like it's something that we use to show class, to show status, to show success. So when our finances aren't in order, or they're not where we think they should be, or where we think other people's are, we internalize that as we've done something wrong. My dad was amazing when it came to teaching me about finances. Not all the lessons held. Some took a long time to come back to where I got them. But one of the things that he said that was my favorite is money is paper. It's like, if I use it for things, it's currency. If I wipe my butt with it, it's toilet paper. And I was like, oh, Dad, come on. But at the same time, what he was trying to teach me, and what I then convey to the people I work with, is money is neutral, right? Like, we have our feelings that we work with through these things, but money itself is a neutral object. So going through our finances is actually really important too, because we end up having compounding feelings of failure when we don't check in on it.
Yeah.
Now is actually a really good time for people to be checking their bank statements. You want to check last year's bank statements, especially for real estate agents. You want to check June, you want to check December, and you want to check the month of the month that you got licensed.
Okay.
Because oftentimes we sign up for annual recurring charges that we forget about, and they usually come Black Friday or right thereafter, because you have your you have your Black Friday sale with your 2-week trial, so you get charged in December.
Yep.
And if it's every 6 months, it comes up in June too. And the month you got licensed, you have those recurring things that pop up, and then you go, wait a minute, what are these 16 different softwares that I don't even know I have? But if you check through your finances, it's a lot easier. It's good to divide your personal expenses and your business expenses. Don't feel bad about your personal expenses. It's your salary. So you have that, you have your business expenses, and then you have those profit goals we were talking about, right?
Right.
So if you're going to travel to Europe next year, make sure that you're putting that into your financial plan. Otherwise, what happens is you get to that point where you're wanting to go and you're looking for that leftover money. And if it's there, you go. And if it's not, maybe you put it on a credit card or whatever that happens. But it's better if you can put that into the plan in advance. So then the last thing is your variable expenses. A lot of people forget that each transaction costs them something, right? It costs you, and it's not just if you have a transaction coordinator, right? It's client gifts, it's gasoline, it's your
time.
Pictures and video.
Yep, your time, your cap, all of those things. And I love that you brought up time, Casey, because I think too many people don't factor in that their time has value in what they're doing. Right?
That's one of my goals this year. That was one of the things I really wanted to focus on. If I felt like somebody's wasting my time, I'm out of there real quick. So.
Yeah. One of my favorite exercises to do with my clients is doing a return on investment analysis on something that's just kind of weighing on their time or weighing on their shoulders. I had a client that was talking to me about, a past client who they really wanted to be there for their past client, but their past client was asking for a discount on the commission. There was, several things going on, and it just started to feel kind of like it was weighing on them. And so we did the math on what they were going to make from this transaction versus what they would make from holding an extra open house and getting another client. And she's like, you know what? I'm going to refer them out.
Yep.
Because
let that be somebody else's problem.
Exactly. There's your time. There's your emotional energy. All of those things are important to maintain. Because if you keep drawing those down to, running on empty, then you're not going to be able to run a business anymore either, right? Because you can't show up at that point. So the other thing is, once you have that financial plan in order, you have to use that to choose your activities. And I think that's where people get into the most trouble with a business plan, right? Have you guys have you experienced 100%. That?
Yeah.
Together your plan and your activities, and you're like, what am I doing?
Yeah, because it's like you see what other people are doing, and it's like like shiny object syndrome. Like, KV, like your CRM stuff, YouTube, Instagram, and it's like, okay, like it's almost like you have to dial back and be like, okay, what are my strengths, and what are the best things for me to pick? What will, like you said, what will I actually do or utilize?
Well, and it's also, I think when you've been doing it for a while too, like you can get to a point where you can do pretty much anything, but what are you going to do at the highest level too, right? Like, what are you going to do where you show up in just that really great way, where like me with the Happiness Studio, where you're getting up each day and going, I am excited to go to work today. Some of that too is making sure that your arrows are pointed towards the right target, right?
Yeah.
Like you talked about YouTube, and we can spread ourselves so thin if we're not careful, right? Like you're trying to post on Facebook and YouTube and Instagram and TikTok, and did I use the right trending sound? And then was my dance on point? Or all sorts of things are going on right now. And then and I have to maintain my current clientele, and it just can turn into a cluster if you're not careful. So couple things that I usually recommend for people there. One is doing a personality test for yourself. I like crystalknows.com because you can set up a free account and you can go through and do your DISC test, your Myers-Briggs, your Enneagram, your what else is there? You can do your values and your strengths and weaknesses. And then they have this really cool thing where you can also compare yourselves to like celebrity profiles. So you can be like, me and Oprah, how are we doing, right? Where are we in the same level here?
And that's Crystal Knows, you said?
Yeah, I think that's it. I'll check real quick. But
I put it up on the comments. Can y'all see that?
Yes, and it's crystalknows.com. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I was putting NOC or NOSE.
Yeah, it's more like Crystal knows you, not Crystal knows.
Yeah.
So I like people going through that, because sometimes you'll find from doing that you have a tendency where your strengths are that you're not leaning into, right? But then also it's a good idea to do an ideal client avatar. And one of the things that I see that a lot of people do is they'll put together these client avatars, but it's kind of like this unicorn avatar that they've pulled from the mists of someplace that may not even actually exist as a person, right? Where it's like, in my ideal world, I'm going to have somebody step off a plane, look at me and go, I want you to help me buy a $4 million estate. And I think that's like everybody's ideal client, but getting your marketing in tune for who you're really looking for can be a different ballgame. So I recommend people look through, especially if you've been in the business for a while, look through the last couple of years and just start looking at what your favorite transactions were. Was it your favorite transaction because of the agent, because of the client? And the ones where it was the client, then you can start using that is a conglomeration of those people and those hobbies and personality styles for who you're going to want to work with moving forward.
Yeah.
And then, so let's say that you love French bulldogs. I'm sure you don't know who I'm talking about.
No, not at all.
And then you notice that like your last 3 clients, they were all dog people. So maybe you're going to start, volunteering at a shelter for dogs or at a rescue. You're going to start working with going into meetup groups that are for, dog owners. You're going to put yourself in the place where you're going to most interact with your ideal client. Because if you're doing that, if you're constantly showing up in those consistent micro tasks for that, if you're constantly putting yourself in front of people that you know are likely to be your ideal client, your rate of success goes up much higher.
Gosh, so you can really get that specific with it too. I was just always like, for me, I know my ideal avatar. I mean, it gets more specific than this, but just like something I always say, I like people who are savvy with technology.
Mm-hmm.
Just makes things a lot easier, in my opinion. But yeah, even like Frenchies. But I guess it also kind of depends on, how big your area is, like what area you're working to. So
it does. And there are times where you want it more broad, right? Like if you're looking at it as a team lead of a large agent group, then your ideal client, first of all, it's going to be an agent, not a person, right? Because you're building your agent business. Mm-hmm. And also it might be much more broad in terms of geography, but you're still going to be wanting to look for people who have specific values and culture fits, right? Like if your team is based on we're all going to be on video and we also all like to go out Friday nights and do shots, then that's your culture fit. And you're looking for people who are going to work with that. For me, I think one of my favorite stories when we think about culture fit is I love working with people who love literature and reading, and especially sci-fi nerds. Like that's, yeah. I love that for some reason. And one of my favorite transactions, I had won the listing when interviewing with other people, because when the husband reached to grab some papers, I saw he had a tattoo on his arm. And it was a Dune reference. And this was like 7 or 8 years ago, before like the movie even came out. I was like, oh, I know what that's from. And he's like, oh, okay, you're my people.
Yeah,
you're my people.
And so it really seems to work together that way. And the more you find these things that you align with and that you're getting joy out of, the more you're going to enjoy doing the work. You're going to be more consistent, and it just snowballs in the best of way.
Yeah. Okay. I love that story with the Dune.
Yes, same here. I like your spin on that, because the people I've worked with in the past, they tell me to look at my highest transactions, not what I enjoyed, but who I did the most with. But it doesn't necessarily mean I enjoy working with those people. So I kind of need to change my way of thought on that.
Well, and I think that's a limiting belief that we're all exposed to, right? And that's perpetuated with us, is that is this idea that luxury begets luxury, right? So people, or that, that rich is always going to be rich, and rich is going to connect you with rich. I was actually just talking with somebody today about a referral that I'd gotten in my first year of real estate. I've been doing this for 10 years now. So the referral I got a while ago. And she was looking for a lower priced home in an area. And the agent who'd met her at open house was kind of like, he didn't want to put in the emotional time and energy to working with this person. And so I said, I'm new. I got time. I'll pick me. And he was right that this person didn't end up purchasing a home at that time. But they referred me to their children who bought a farm, who bought an investment property, who bought another, their in-laws bought a home too, and now circle around, they're buying a rental property. So it took 10 years for them to buy that property, but in the process, that's four transactions. And the other thing that's interesting is when you find people that you really like working with and you're able to maintain and grow that referral and past client business by staying in touch and being part of their lives. You might start with somebody who's that first-time home buyer, but then we know that people move every 7 to 10 years, depending on your location, right? For a while, it was almost like every 2, but that's starting to equalize again. So that first-time home buyer, they are $1 million client in terms of how many times they're going to be buying and selling and where they're going to be going in the trajectory of their life. So as agents, it's more on us to decide, are we in this kind of like rush through this, trying to be like, I'm going to be in real estate for 5 years, make as much money as I can, and then peace, I'm out and gone? Or is this what you're going to be doing as a career where you're going to want to continue these relationships through time?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I always say that real estate's a long game, but I guess like depending on how you set it up, it doesn't really have to be.
It doesn't actually. Like there are people who can fine tune that marketing and to be honest, this is where it really gets into what I talk about with your own freedom and designing your own business. Because there are people who I know who will get into something like real estate and they are playing that short game and they're going to fine tune their marketing and they really don't care about anything other than that deal for that period of time. And that's their style, right? And there's room for all of us in real estate. That's the nice thing, is there's so many brokerages and there's so many agents, because I'm not everybody's cup of tea, right? And same thing for somebody else. So that's why there's so many of us. So there's room for different styles. There's room for different approaches, for different, there are some people who get into real estate simply because they want to be able to invest and it's a way to make it more cost effective. There are some people who get into this because they want it to be their life for 50 years. And I know some people who are in real estate specifically because they love the high of the deal, right? Like they are the person who always has to be closing because that adrenaline rush, like they're either doing real estate or they're off skydiving. It seems like that's your zone.
A or B.
Yeah. And so but there's room for all of us, right? And that's why it's important to do a plan, because if we just had a one-size-all business plan for everybody, it wouldn't work for most of us because we don't all want the same business. We don't all want the same life. So that's why you're making your business plan, not your neighbors, not your team leaders, not your upline or your downline. You're making your business plan.
You got to make it fit for you, what works for you.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Love it.
I do too. Like it's changing my mind frame, like how I need to think about things. So,
well, if I have the opportunity to change a little bit of some other things too, I'd love to share one of my other top tips is about the time of your business plan.
Yeah.
So for me, I don't love yearly business plans. I'm sure Hallie will tell you, I am a firm believer in a quarterly revision of whatever you're working on. And it's for a couple of reasons. One is we know how fast our industry moves, right? And so if you're really checking in on your plan once a year, you're probably not adapting the way you need to. The second thing is that people talk about breaking their plan into quarters, but in most cases, they're breaking their plan into the same quarters, right? So they're sitting there going, I want to do 40 deals a year. And so that means they'll sit there and go, well, so that means I want to do 10 deals a quarter. And that might work, or it might not at all. So let's say that in one of those quarters, they're going to be spending a month traveling. Should they still expect to do the same 10 deals that quarter as they do every other quarter? Probably not. No. If they're a newer agent and they haven't been prospecting for the last 3 months, or if there's somebody who just hasn't been prospecting for the previous 3 months, they might
said yes to prospecting.
They might not want to expect those 10 deals in that first quarter. So you look at what you want for the overall year, but then you break it into the quarters in a sensible way. So that might look like in quarter one, I'm going to plan on doing 6 deals because I'm fairly certain that if I get on my game right now, I will have that handled by the end of the quarter. And then you're looking at your other quarters and you're factoring in in travel, your actual schedule. This is different than something like the 12-week year, because the 12-week year is more about taking what you would do in a year and putting it into that quarter, because you can do more than you think you can in those short bursts. It's completely true. But I think that when if you're doing that long game with trying to do the sustainable over time, you are better off breaking things into quarters and really looking at what you want each quarter to look like. Otherwise, you're going to start your first quarter off feeling like you've already fallen behind and you're already doing something wrong. And then you're going to go into crazy mode. And then you're going to say, well, I can't take the rest. I can't take the time. And it just starts to spiral further and further backwards. It's just a little tweak with a little bit of planning, and it seems to really help a lot of people.
It's like, it's kind of like when like when you're on a diet and then you fall off the wagon that day, and then you're like, okay, well, I already ate bad. Like, I'm just going to like eat bad the rest of the day. Like, I feel like that's how it can be.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm going to that, especially during the holidays.
Yeah.
and actually the holidays is a really good example for that too, because like when you're on a diet or doing things, like if you know that you are going to visit your family member at the holidays and that your grandma makes the best dessert known to man and that you are not going to be ignoring it, just plan that in. Right? Don't you know what's going to happen, so don't put yourself in a position where you're just feeling bad for doing what you know you're going to do.
Yeah.
So I think one of the things that's probably really important to talk about specifically for this year too is the number of activities that people are doing. So what are you guys hearing about people and their productivity or their numbers? Are you hearing more people are saying that their numbers are staying the same, that they're going up, going down as far as like closed deals?
Mine is here in Raleigh. We've slowed down some. Certain things have but now it's starting to pick back up. I've been working in Wilmington the last few weekends, and my clients have had more, like a house that we're making an offer on tonight. There's already another offer on the table. So it just depends. These two areas are growing, and we've got Apple coming. We've got, Amazon's here. We've got a lot of big companies coming, and we are right behind Austin as one of the fastest growing towns. And then Wilmington's right behind us.
Yeah.
Yep.
So and then there's me on the flip side, where it's definitely slowing down for all the agents here. And not that I think there are some agents who are continuing to hit their same numbers, but overall, I'd say it's probably going to be a little bit less for those. It's just like the time that there's not as much of a rush for the buyers right now. So they're taking more time to think on deals before they go under contract. So I think that plays into it too.
And that's what my buyer keeps doing, because he's thinking that the market slowed down. And I'm like, no, it has not. Like, Scott, we got to go, because more and more offers, and it's picking up. And I told him, I said, we need to have you a contract in the next 2 weeks, because if not, we're going into the spring market and you're going to be in multiple offers again. So,
yep. I think this is a really good example too of how much news people get that's a national perspective, where they think they know what's going on. And then when you look at it, it's so micro based on area and what's going on in the area and what's going on in the industry. The only thing that's consistent across the board, I think, is the interest rates and inflation component.
Yeah. And
so the one thing that I do think agents are going to run into over the next year is you can't create buyers like you did previously. And what I mean by that is when somebody comes into your open house, if we're at 2% interest rates and they've got a job and decent credit, you've got a buyer if they want to buy a house. But that's not the case anymore as far as affordability stats go.
Yeah.
So having to do more open houses, have more relationship building activities, just being out there more and being involved more. My prediction for the year is going to be that we're going to see a further striation. You know, we used to have we had the Pareto principle of, 20%, is you spend 80% of your time doing 20% of what's important, right? Is the goal. And we also see that reflected in real estate, where 20% of the agents do 80% of the business. But in our area a little while back, we were noticing that it was closer to 10% of the agents were doing 90% of the business. And I think that's going to get more and more progressive, to the point where we'll probably even see closer to like 5% of the agents doing 95% of the business.
Wow.
And the reason why I say that is because when you are actively working in your market, you know what's going on, right? Like you're talking, Casey, about you're talking with your buyer because, you're still seeing the multiple offers. You know what's going on. You know that if he waits 2 weeks, you're going to be in that spring market. Whereas there's another agent sitting in the same room who's talking with their client and saying, well, you've seen what's on the news. Things are just slowing down. Why don't you put in a lowball offer? Right.
And we tried that with one house because he was listening to the news and listening to his family. And when we did that, they were like, nope, too far apart.
Yeah.
And I mean, that house is still sitting there. It's not worth what they're asking. But sorry, the trains have gone by 100 times today. I don't know if they're like trying them out or what they're doing. It has been an all-day process. I'm not it's probably been 20 trains today, where it's usually like 5 or 6. So
I love them. We've got a train that actually runs by here, and when we get the fog, it just carries across, and it is one of my favorite sounds in the night. So it doesn't bother me.
I like it too.
I moved home. Well, I moved home, so it'd be a little quieter, and they're still coming by. Like that's all I can hear. That and Rocky.
I know, he's so funny.
So yeah, I think that the activities that people are going to be approaching needs to change, and I think that in previous years, they could use data sets where they would look and know their conversion ratios and things like that and just plug in the numbers. And I think you need to plug in those numbers with a bit more of a contingency now, where it's like, hey, if I was going out with my referral partners, going out with like 3 referral partners a week to meet up, you're probably going to need to be at 5 or 6 this time around to maintain the same level of business. And so,
yeah.
So that's one of my things on it. The other thing that I think is really important for most business plans that people miss is their personal development factors, right?
Right.
So I like recommending that people find their favorite podcasts, books, doing retreats, going to your conferences that are important to you, but really focusing on that personal development portion, I think, is huge.
I agree. You know me. Those are like my favorite activities to do.
Yeah. I know. I like any of the ones I get to see you, Hallie, at.
I know. So Casey and I met at 10X Ladies in Miami.
Oh, nice.
Cardone's event.
Yeah, such a good event.
We already knew we were like-minded.
Well, and I think that's an important aspect of that too, right? Like when you go to those events, especially when you meet other agents to network with and you're looking to build referral partners, you already know that you're on the same path, that you're looking for similar things, right?
Right.
And also that you believe in investing in your business and your personal growth. So that takes some of the interviewing process right out of the requirement thing, right? Like you already know some of what that person's values are. And when you're going to those events, it's for your personal development and it's also to network. Hallie knows this. I like sending my clients with bingo cards to events so that they start doing extra activities while they're there. And it's a whole mix of stuff. It's like personal relaxation activities, interacting with other people, things that are going to both help build their business and build their time. So, for like if at Inman in Las Vegas, there might be one that says meet somebody from a different brokerage. And there also might be something that says spend an hour sitting by the pool. But if they do a bingo, they get a prize. And if they do a blackout, they get a prize. And so I'm a big fan of doing that to help get my clients more engaged in those conferences too. Because sometimes you'll go to a conference and you'll just kind of shut down, right? And then you're just you're there, you're taking in the information, but are you really fully getting the gain out of it?
Right.
one of my favorite stories was I was at a real estate conference in New Orleans, and I had an extra martini at lunch than I should have. And they gave me a princess crown. And so then we were walking through the vendor floor, and the guy came up to me. He's like, "Hey, we've got a great deal." And I was like, "Oh, but is it the princess deal? Because as you can see, I'm a princess today. So I'm only accepting the princess discounts, not just the ones you're doing for everybody else." And he actually came up with a better discount, which was fun. But I think really stepping out of your shell when you're at those conventions too, to engage with people, is super important, because that's how things like this happen that are wonderful, is you get these relationships and these partnerships that really help, not just with referrals and business, but also we know that this is kind of a lonely business sometimes, right? Like, even if you have a brokerage, even if you have all those things going, like everything in place, you're still the one sitting at your computer there by yourself sometimes.
Yeah.
And whatever you're experiencing with your day, you're experiencing it like inside. And so it's nice to develop these relationships so that you have people to share it with in a way that your spouse, unless they're also in real estate, probably doesn't understand. Or it's a day sometimes, right?
Yes, it is.
So yeah, I think I hit most of my hacks. Did we talk about mini tasks?
No.
Okay, so then, yeah, I got one last one for you, and that is the benefit of consistent mini tasks. We get super excited about big projects, right? Like how you said the shiny, like the shiny object syndrome.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know about you guys, but I've done it more times than I would like to admit, but I've gone to a seminar or a class and somebody's talked about something they do, and I go, "Oh my gosh, that is awesome. I could totally do that. I'm going to start a YouTube channel." Let's keep in mind that nobody in my demographic at this point is on YouTube anymore. You know, like they've moved on to other platforms, but I'm going to start a YouTube channel because it worked for this person and it sounds like fun. So then I start to invest all this time on planning it and this big project, but it's not actually really getting me anything, right? Whereas if you do consistent small mini tasks, you're going to actually get more growth, because while you're spending the time on those big projects, everything else is happening around you, right? Yep. But if you're focusing on the mini tasks, especially the ones that are going to help, hey Rocky,
so cute,
that are going to help grow your business, you're going to do better off. Mm-hmm. So let's say that you're thinking, I want to be somebody who has like big parties for my clients. And so you spend all of your time focusing on like this huge end of year party, and you're spending all this time on it. You don't necessarily know that you probably haven't been engaging with your clients during that time, because all you've been focusing on is this big project. Where if you do mini task, or it's like, my goal is to take, one of my clients out every week just for coffee or something like that, focusing on smaller steps that get you more direct person-to-person interaction. Mm-hmm. Because we also know that's the highest form of communication, right? Like when you're able to sit one-to-one with somebody. And yes, the other thing is, those don't have to be real estate conversations, right? Like everybody gets into that whole, are you looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate question, right? Like that's the question that you're supposed to ask everybody. For a lot of us, that's not the authentic question to ask, right? The authentic question for us to ask is, how are you doing? What's going on in your world?
Yep.
And when you show up authentically and are interested in invest in their lives, people are naturally going to reciprocate. You're not actually going to have to worry about asking that question, because if you're showing up there, they're going to remember you.
And I'll remember you.
Yeah. And then you're the person who they go out to, who's not just their real estate agent, but you're their friend. You go out to coffee with them. When they said their fence fell down, you went, "Oh my goodness, let me call my contractor and see if he has any availability to get you taken care of." You're the person who they can talk to when they need resources. You are a part of their life and a part of their world. And at the end of the day, we talk a lot about customer service in general, right? Especially in COVID and how all that happened. We started talking a lot about customer service, how we treat people in customer service, and the customer service that we want. But at the end of the day, I don't think people really just want like a good customer service experience when they go to a bar, right? At the end of the day, we all want cheers. We want to go someplace where when we walk in the door, everybody shouts our name, right?
Yes.
And so how can you be that person in the world for the people that are around you. And positioning your business plan around that, on how you show up best on those activities, is huge. That might be, people mostly for social media. So are you just, are you constantly showing up for people there, commenting, engaging, making sure that you're present? It can be, taking people out to coffee, whatever it is that you're going to do at a high level to interact with people. Just go all in on that for the year. You're going to love your year more, right, than you did the last one. And you're going to do more than you did previously because you're willing to show up more doing those things.
I'm going to a hot cycle class after this with a client.
See? I mean, I don't know that you could pay me to go to a hot cycle class. I know it's not my thing, but I think it's amazing that you're doing it with clients.
Yeah, I'll go to my Frenchie group.
I'm with the group that's going to the hot sauna place. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the important thing for everybody with their business plan. Don't freak out if you haven't done it. You can always start one today. Don't make it your 5-year plan and put all that pressure on yourself. Break it down to the small quarters. Do things in these groups and these brackets. Know your money. Don't be afraid of your money. It's not going to hurt you. Ignoring it is going to hurt you. So know your money and make your plan around that. And remember that you're an object in motion. So put yourself in motion with something that you're going to keep doing, because it's just going to keep, propelling you further forward. But if you're just going to spend all of your time trying to force yourself into something that you're not going to do, you're going to find yourself out of the industry.
Well said. I love it.
Like it. Yes, me too.
Yay.
Yes.
I don't think I have any other questions or anything. Casey, you good?
This was awesome. Yes, very good.
Oh,
Andy is seriously the best.
Oh,
every time I get on, talk to you or anything, I'm just so much more relieved and feel so good after. So I'm just so thankful for you, Andy.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for coming on today too.
Yes.
Thank you for having me. It was so nice to meet you, Casey. And
it was so nice to meet you as well. So thank you.
Yes. Oh, and we got a plug. If you want to talk with Andy about coaching, or if you're in the Portland area and want to use her, Portland or Oregon, Washington, that whole state line.
Yeah.
Totally not familiar. She's got her website right here, and I'll put it in the chat too. Talk with Andy, and you can set up an appointment with her. And then you are AKB_unfiltered on Instagram as well, right?
And yeah,
and
that's where you see me, the evil cat, the dog, the kid, all of us, the crazy menagerie. That's where you find us.
Yeah, everybody give her a follow. And again, that website is right here on her page. And then I just put it in the comments too. So set up an appointment with her. She will help you get it figured out. And seriously, if you're overwhelmed, she will make you feel so much better about everything you have going on and will help you make a plan. So
thank you. Yeah. And
thank you, ladies. So awesome.
Yeah. When if you want to, go ahead and just book a call with me too, it's no pressure. There's no obligation. I'm not requiring your firstborn child in exchange for my time. So just feel free to drop me a line anytime.
I'll give you a Rocky.
DePaul. Oh, well, thank you so much, Andy. I appreciate your time, and you're just such a wealth of knowledge. So thank you so much. Yes, and we'll be on next Monday. We're still trying to nail down our one of our big, someone big. We'll say that.
Yes.
So hopefully he'll be next week. If not, maybe second to last or last weekend of January. But we will be on next Monday, same time. So
every Monday, same time, same place.
Yes, we will see you guys then. And thank you again.
Have a great week. So,
bye.
Thank you.